Hey everybody, in this video I'm gonna be showing you the game that I played against Grandmaster Master Vasilis Athanasios featuring the London system. But before we dive right into the action, I wanted to let you know that today we have just released the free version of my London system course, so you can go ahead, check it out on Chessable. Only thing you need is to have a Chessable account, which literally takes only a couple of seconds to create, and you will get access to my free mini repertoire of how to play the London system. So without further ado, let's actually jump right into the actual game and see what happened. So I opened up the game with d4, opponent playing knight f6, and now my favorite move order against knight f6 is going bishop f4. It's just sort of a kind of a nice flexible move in case they want to go for c5, going into the crazy lines. We could simply play something like e3 and just keep it super London standard. And in case of g6, we have ideas to even transpose into the Jobava London against the kingside fianchetto. And my opponent played e6, I went e3, and now he went for d5. I developed my knight, he struck in the center with c5, and I played the move knight b to d2. And now he goes for the somewhat tricky move order with bishop to d6. And you may be surprised because I have not played the, let's say, most common London system move, which would have been bishop g3. And instead, I went for the simple c3, allowing my opponent to take on f4, which would reach what I like to name the Berkey structure, which is covered actually quite a bit of detail in my free version of the London course. We have a 1 hour long video that's like completely free, explaining some of the main plans in this structure, the classical one when we just play with bishop d3, but also explaining the modern version when it's good to launch the h-pawn, as Lila likes to do in many occasions. So this is not what he played in the game, and he went for queen c7. But let me first explain why am I not going for bishop g3, because arguably after castle c3 he could be playing the move knight c6, and now after bishop d3 we basically just have a direct transposition to one of the biggest main lines of the London system. And by the way, in my course, some of you may be curious, against b6 I'm not playing knight e5 nor e4. I think those could be decent alternatives still, but I'm going for the sort of modern main line with queen e2, bishop b7, and rook d1, with ideas to break with e4 on the next move. And I think white has slightly more pleasant position in these lines usually. But what if they don't actually end up playing the move knight c6 transposing? And this is where they can actually exploit our move order by playing queen to c7. And now, well, what's the point? So the point is to protect the bishop. And after bishop d3, black could do the move knight b to d7. And now e5 break is unstoppable. And after something like this, e5, black just gets complete equality. If we trade everything, this is just an equal game that's gonna be very hard to create anything, and black is just known to be super comfortable in this position. So you may be wondering, but okay, why does black need to play this kind of sophisticated move order and simply not go, let's say, like the main line, play knight c6, and after bishop d3, they could do the same, queen c7, you may be wondering, because arguably there's no way to stop e5 on the next move. And the problem with this move order, and why black needs to start with queen c7 and then knight b to d7, if they want to be getting into this, is that now white has a pretty nice move to win a pawn, which you can try to pause the video and find it by yourself, which is going d takes on c5. And notice that black is unable to take because of this pin. And after something like bishop g3, this is forced. Your opponents will try out the move e5, of course, going for the fork. But after you just play e4, white has an extra pawn, pressure on the h-file, and already just a completely winning position. So that's why for them it's actually important to play it in the queen c7 fashion. And knowing all of these kind of subtleties, I came to the conclusion that c3 works best, and this is the main recommendation in my London course. And now the point is, after what my opponent played, the move queen c7, we can actually take on d6, put the knight on e5, and whenever they are Going to play something like knight c6, we can just support our knight with f4, getting into a pawn structure that I like to refer to as the reversed Stonewall structure, with these kind of pawns where the knight is super juicy. You can follow it up with bishop d3, and white just has a very easy play. So the game continued. Castle, bishop to d3, opponent took on d4, took back, and now play knight e7. I went for castle. We're not going to be diving too much into what other alternatives could have been made, because I think the position kind of remains the same. There's nothing too dramatic that can happen with any other move, so generally the plans will stay the same. So after castle's bishop d7, you can already notice that there's a pretty significant difference between the bishops, and okay, without bishops on the board, this position could be maybe around equal, but with bishops on the board, typical also like for the barricade structure, we're just much better because we have free pressure against the enemy king. So here we have a really nice move that we can use to continue our attack, which is not g4. That is definitely an idea, but we can do it a bit later. We still have some pieces that can be improved. And in the game, I went for the move rook f3. Opponent went for b5. Very logical. This is one of black's main plans in what we have on the board, which is the Carlsbad pawn structure, to just set up the minority attack with b4. And now I went rook h3. And I'm having a pretty hidden threat now, because if opponent follows it up with the minority attack, I get a very juicy tactic that just wins on the spot. Again, you can try to pause the video and find it on your own, because we can simply sacrifice the bishop. And after knight takes, we have queen h5. There's no way to protect the knight, and if the knight moves away, we simply get a checkmate. So this was a super deadly threat. That's why my opponent had to play the move g6, and now I simply follow it up with queen e1, threatening queen h4, bringing more pieces, hitting the knight and putting pressure on the h file. He went knight f5, but now g4 works even better because it comes with a tempo, getting rid of the knight. The knight g7 continued with queen h4, hitting the knight, also putting pressure on d square. Knight e8 was played, but now after the simple knight df3, threatening queen h6, followed by knight g5, and there won't be any way to protect that pawn. He tried out the move h5. And here it's kind of the sort of critical moment where a lot of players could tend to panic and just try to seek for the winning blow, when in fact we still have a piece that's not participating into the game, which is the a1 rook. And for this reason, I have just played the move king h1, and on bishop c6 the point was obviously to bring the rook. And now when all of a sudden all of our pieces are participating into the attack, it is pretty obvious that black won't have any way to protect the king side. And the main problem for black in this opening is that this bishop is simply unable to enter the game. So after rook c8, I went g takes on h5, and my opponent simply resigned, because after knight takes on h5, I could just take the knight, exploiting the pin, and mate was following on the next move. So, okay, this looked like a pretty simple and straightforward game. You may be wondering, but okay, where did black actually went wrong? So to be honest, black did not make any, like, let's say, obvious mistakes. This could be the case when you get such a, let's say slightly worse position from the opening, but you just seem to have no active counterplay. And this is super important, why you need to understand your openings, have good opening theory, just to avoid this kind of stuff when your opponent gets a super pleasant position and basically you just sit there passive. He just rolls you over the king side, as we did in this game. Obviously, I was very familiar with the opening, and that also helped quite a bunch. And before I let you go, let me actually show you a little bit what you can find inside the free London course, if you're still considering whether to get it or not. So here you can see the initial page. You can see that it has an hour and 13 minutes long free video, which is basically a full lesson. And if we click on browse, you're gonna be getting these number of chapters, like the Slav endgame, the anti-London, some Slav lines. So for instance, let me just show you what the format actually is. So let's say we go over the knight bd7 line. And basically here you get the book format that we have on Chessable. And you have to keep in mind that Chessable does not only have the book format that you see here. You also get to own something named the Move Trainer technology, which basically allows you to go through these lessons while also doing a review afterwards. And you basically practice against the computer, and it's known to be the most efficient way to memorize theory. This is also what I use myself, find it super effective, and it just allows you to get that pattern recognition rolling. So after QMB3 here, you'll see that this is one of the lessons dealing about one of the most common endgames arising from the Slav. And here, what you can see is just the book format that we have. Again, this is completely free. You don't need to pay anything. Just need to have an account that takes like a few seconds to get. And now you basically just get a nice fragment of theory against the knight BD7 plan, explaining quite a lot of stuff, if you'd ask me. Like this is definitely quite a lot of information for the short and sweet video, especially in my opinion. And yeah, it's basically just teaching you how to get out the most juice out of these knight BD7 endgames. Of course, in the main course, these are broken down in much greater depth, but just to give you an idea of what you can get in the free course. Now, this was the Slav endgame. If we go back a bit, we're also going to be discussing about the Berke structure. As I said, here you get to see the classical approach. So after the moves d4, d5, get the bishop out. This is exactly like what we had in the video, almost. But instead of c5, here black took on f4. And now I'm basically explaining some of the main plans of how to play this structure with bishop d3, giving a little bit of theory and so on. So that is the classical approach. So now actually, let me just show you a little bit what the move trainer actually is. So you can see here we have a number of trainables that can be noticed with this learn moves feature. We're going to be clicking on this, and now it takes us to the position where it starts. And now we just need to sort of do the moves. The computer will play against us, and this way we just get to efficiently practice our opening theory. I'll just do it here so you can see what actually the process looks like. Queen belongs to e2 in this structure always, just rook ad1 and so on. And now after you did that, it basically makes you recreate the moves. And also these are kind of available for you to change the settings of it a little bit. So if you feel like, let's say, repeating only 2 times is enough for you, or maybe repeat more, like 5 times, you can set it as it is. Like the default settings would be to repeat this 3 times, but you can customize it on how you prefer. And now just gonna be doing this thing, and queen e2 is an alternative. You see, like if I make a move that is still good and it's not rook e1, it's still not gonna give it as a wrong move, but we'll say is an alternative. Or at least in many of the times. Like, by the way, if something isn't good and it's not an alternative, you can let me know and I can make one. So after queen e2, rook c8, just rook ad1. Just gonna be playing that line one more time. This is how it works. Get the bishop out, get castled, and yeah, I believe started rook e1. Now let's actually see if we make a wrong move. So let's say we play queen c2 instead of queen e2. This is given an alternative. Let's say we play something different, which is incorrect. That's queen b3. And now it shows us the right move. We play the line till the end. And now it's focusing on the mistake that we did, because we played queen b3 here. It's going to make us make this move a number of times until we remember. And that is basically why I think the move trainer is the most efficient way to learn theory nowadays. I think this gives you sort of a good introduction of what you can get for absolute free. There are like many chapters there. Let me actually do a quick count to see how many files you have after we browse. So I think you have like around 12 files here. I remember recording like 12 chapters. So I think it's pretty good value considering you have to pay nothing. Just have a Chessable account and just collect it. So yeah, if you're interested on that, I'll be leaving a link in the description of this video, and I'd love to see you there. And if you're looking for more content, make sure to check out the London System Rating Climb.